By the way, we have been looking all this church year, at this theme. What's the theme? Let's see how good we are. Oh, that's very good. You're very capable. I love this group. You're so capable. Very intelligent group here. Anyways, just listen. And we've been just listening to the prophets. Just listen to Isaiah, who has a lot to say actually about the coming of Jesus. And just listen to Jeremiah, who has a lot to say about what it means to deal with bad times and kind of make the most of those kind of things. And we're going to be looking at another prophet right now, arguably the greatest prophet in the Old Testament. His name is Moses, and he's a guy kind of like E.F. Hutton. Do we have this thing? Do we have this E.F. Hutton commercial? Do we have it? Do we? Oh, here it comes.
I've been thinking about the market lately.
My broker says now's a good time to look into tax-free income. What'd your broker say?
Well, my broker's E.F. Hutton, and E.F. Hutton says...
Now, do any of you remember this, by the way, this E.F. How many of you remember E.F. Hutton commercials so we can move on beyond this?
When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen.
Oh, there he goes. That's the catchphrase. When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. Well, you know, when Moses talks, people listen. That was, if you were a good Jew, you listened, because to say Moses said something was tantamount to hearing what God was saying. Moses was different, you know. He was educated at the top of his class. He was in Egypt, and all the other Jews are slaves. Moses is there as a prince. Moses is a guy who stands before God and receives a special message, and he's the one that could go up on a mountain and meet with God and receive His commandments, while everyone else said, you know, if we go up there, we're afraid for our lives. He was a guy that was able to spend time with God in a special way, and God seemed to meet with him in just this one-to-one special way. Really, the message of God came to us through Moses, came to the Jews through Moses. And so when Moses spoke, the Jews said, we've got to listen. So in the New Testament, you have Jesus saying, you heard what Moses said, but I say to you. Now, that wasn't dissing Moses. That was just saying, you know what? I'm complimenting Moses. Moses came to give us the law. I've come to fulfill the law. I want you to know, Moses has something powerful to say, and I just want you to get a bigger picture of what he was saying. Because somehow we are not very good listeners. How many of you are kind of not the best listener in the world? I mean, okay, somebody, especially men should be raising their hands. Should they not? This is a man's question, really. Yeah, you're pointing at me for semi-obvious. What? I didn't hear that. I don't know that I want to hear it, but...
Your husband said repeat the question.
That is really... Who said that? Who was the... it was Ronnie? Was that you? Thank you, Ronnie. This is... by the way, I'm thinking about dividing our church into the men's side and the women's side, and I'm not sure where most of the sinners would line up, but... I don't know for sure on that one, but I do know this, that Moses, when he gave us this book called Deuteronomy, by the way, books of the law, the 5 books of Moses, the first 5 books called the Pentateuch, is another, I think that's a Latin name for that. It's the idea that God has spoken through Moses through these books, but the book of Deuteronomy, it means the second, Deutero means second, Deuteronomy, nomos law. Deuteronomy, the second law, the second time, it's kind of like Moses saying, you guys aren't very good listeners, so I really want to get this thing down inside of you. And it's kind of like his last message before he left. And he said, okay, guys, listen up. This is your last chance to get it. Second time around. This is what Moses said. This is what Moses said. You know what? It's more important that you don't, rather than listen to me, that you listen to God. And you need to know what God is like. You need to know what God is like, because it's easy to get skewed. It's easy to misunderstand. And I want to give you one nutshell understanding of what God is like in one verse. In Deuteronomy 4:24, he says, "For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God." You know, there's one thing about God that we need to know, is that he is full of passion. And if we're going to get to know that God, somehow we've got to connect to him at a passionate level. There's just nothing. Jesus said this, you know, I'd rather have you cold. I want you hot, but I'd rather have you cold than what? Lukewarm. You know, Ann and I, when we first came here, there was this woman that came to our church, and she said, you know, and by the way, we've got lots of stories, HarborPointe. Can you believe that? We've got a lot of stories. But this woman came and said that she was having an affair. She was coming to church. She was having an affair. And we spent time with her, and she said to us on one occasion, this is around Christmas time, she said, "Would you come with me down to Virginia Beach, a shopping center? I'm supposed to meet the guy that I'm having this affair with. I want to break it off." And Ann and I need the courage. I need somebody, would you come with me? So we were there with her and saw her meet with this guy to break off the relationship. And then she said, "Would you meet with my husband, because I want to get this marriage back together?" And so we did. We met at our house with the husband and the wife who had been unfaithful, and they sat there on the couch, and she poured out her heart. And she said that she'd been unfaithful. And she said she wanted to make it right before God and before her husband. She wanted this marriage to work. And she was broken and sharing and looking into his eyes. And the whole time that she's sharing this most intimate desire to connect, he is as cold as any fish I've ever seen, dead fish, limp. No motion. No motion. And afterwards she said, "That has been my marriage from day one." You know, there is no marriage unless there's passion, is there? There is just no marriage. I mean, you can call that a marriage, but there's no marriage unless there's passion. I think really she was having an affair, hoping to stir some passion someplace, hoping to create something. But a lot of us have been passionate about a lot of things. Some of the things are really stupid. How many of you are passionate about this big game? I mean, my number one question to people is last day, well, who's going to win the Super Bowl? And I get responses, you know, and I get different kinds of responses, but you know, there's a lot of passion that comes into a lot of stupid kind of stuff, isn't it? You know, I think it was Bill Cosby had a skit one time about saying, you know, why don't we instead of paying these football players these enormous salaries, why don't we say, for the best school teacher, we're going to now give you $1 million, $28 million. Melissa, we're gonna try to find the very best teacher in the world, and we're gonna keep on raising your salary. Oh my goodness! I mean, doesn't that make sense though? I mean, that seems to make sense rather than saying we're gonna find somebody. bang his head against somebody else and have a concussion, and we're going to pay you lots of money to watch it. I mean, it really is, it's stupid, isn't it? How many of you have done this one? You got passionate about something. I think, Mike, you may remember this story. Some of you may remember this story, but Ann and I, Ann sometimes thinks that my driving leaves a little to be desired, but she used to back the car into the garage, and she didn't like the way I backed it in because she said it was too close to the side that she got out anyways. And we were driving home together, and I was driving. She says, "Why don't you get out and get the trash cans, and I'll back the car in." And I was thinking, I know what you're saying. You're saying you don't like the way I back in. I said, I can do both. And she says, no, I'll do that. You do. And I said, I can do both. Well, fine. I would take the trash can. And I said, don't do it. I'll do both. But anyway, she gets out, gets the trash cans, and I'm backing the car back in as fast as I can so I can get out and get the trash cans too. And then when she comes on back, she says, I don't like the way you backed it in. So she got into the car, and she's going to re-back it in. And I said, I'll re-back it in. And she said, I'm going to... And so she got into the car, and then I stood in front of the car. So if you get this picture now. By the way, this is nothing you should do. Anyone who's not married, this is not a good thing to stand in front of an angry wife who's in the driver's seat, and you're just standing there. You know, I want you to know she did not run over me, but she turned the car. I mean, the car's running. She turned the car off, and so I reached over and grabbed a stool and pulled it in front of the car. So she's sitting there, and I'm sitting in the stool. So here we are. Here we are. I mean, people watching this are probably wondering, what is going on here? I mean, there he is. There I am sitting on a stool, and she's in the driver. I mean, so this is... Now, the only thing, this standoff, is, I just want you to know, it was important. I mean, we're both passionate about something really important. How many? Okay. You're laughing. Some of you, how many of you have done something like this? Something similar, something anywhere close to this kind of, okay. You know what I'm talking about then. How come all the guys' hands went up? I just don't, on that one, it was all guys' hands. It just all went up. I tell you, we tend to get passionate about stupid things.
Agreed.
But Moses is calling us to a passionate God who wants this passionate relationship with Him. You know, I was growing up, and by and large, good church. But, you know, so I was growing up, my concept of God was that it's kind of like this. He was sort of half. He's passionate, but his passion is sort of kind of seesawed between a passion for his love and mercy, and there's also his passion for his wrath and condemnation. It's kind of like, and it's kind of seesawed between the two. Revelation 20 says, "But fire came down from heaven and devoured them. The devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet have been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever." And I remember growing up and hearing passages like this. I think we've got I think we have a picture here next. It's Revelation 20, 11 through 15. "Then I saw a great white throne and him who was seated on it. And the earth and the heavens fled from his presence. There was no place for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne. And books were open, and another book was open, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the books. And the sea gave up dead that were in it. And the death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them. And each person was judged according to what they had done. The death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. And the lake of fire is the second death. And anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire." And I can't tell you how many times I prayed, "Oh Lord, don't send me there." And my concept was, I'm in desperate need. And again and again and again, I would pray. And I think there was something really important about this, something that was being burned into my soul about passion. But sometimes, even we can take even scriptural passages and become passionate about something that can be misleading, at least I think is the best way of saying it. I think what God desperately wants us to do is be compassionate, but be compassionate in a relationship with Him, and not just passionate about escaping punishment and condemnation. There's just this promotion that some people have latched onto, a passion for somehow bringing messages of condemnation, messages of perdition. They just have this sort of connection that sort of enables, I think, them to raise themselves up a bit. It seemed like everyone who always gave messages, they were always very assured that they were not going to be thrown into that lake. But they weren't so sure about people like me. And so there's always like, it was always like this message from a very self-assured person to people who were not assured. And if you were assured, then you were okay. But if you were not assured, then heaven help you. And then you have Jesus who comes along and says, I think what Moses had to say is really good, but we need to make sure it's complemented well. It's understood. Jesus said, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those enter who are trying to. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to win a single convert, and when you've succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are." Now, the Pharisees they're not bad people. They're just religious people, super religious people. They were people who really wanted to get it right, but were passionate about some stuff that was kind of a misfocus. They were the best of the best. They were not the people that you found in the bars and taverns. Pharisees weren't there. Jesus wouldn't go around and say, "Look, you guys in the bars and taverns, I want to talk to you about hell because you're in danger of going there." He wasn't doing that. What he was saying is, you Pharisees, you people in the church who are so assured that everything is just right, I want to wake you up. Do you realize that you're leading people into hell? Because you have got wrapped up in your own self-importance, your own self-assurances. You've missed out on the message that I'm trying to bring, which is a message of freedom and love, mercy, grace to people who are in desperate need. Those people in the bars and taverns, they need to hear this message of my grace and mercy and love. And somehow you've flipped it around, you're talking to them about condemnation. Don't talk to them about condemnation. Talk to the people in the church about condemnation. They need to be wakened up because they're in a lethargy. And probably the first person who needs to hear that message is the pastor. Hey, no, wait a second. Charlie, he's only been here for 2 minutes. I saw him just slip in. He's amening already, and it's the only point. Charlie, if you were here earlier, you would really be amening. I was talking about my wife. Well, anyways, this is...
Just remember, Charlie's a pastor, too.
Oh, he's a pastor. Yeah, that's right, Charlie. You are, too. You're a chaplain. This is... Let's go down through the list. navigators, probably. I mean, it's everybody who sets themselves. It's chaplains. It's leaders of chaplains. It is everyone in leadership. We are the ones that need to desperately say, oh God, am I in danger of hell? And I'm leaving people astray because of my misunderstanding of your passion. Am I not getting it right? Because Jesus was challenging the people, the spiritual elite. He's challenging those people. Can I understand what you're saying? Jesus told us this parable, and it's kind of an interesting parable. And I think for years I've sort of misread this parable, but it says there was a rich man. I think we got a picture. Do we have a picture here? There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. And at his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. Now, I've always sort of viewed myself in this. I certainly have a hard time figuring out who I identify with. I do have a dog. But that dog, is a spoiled. And I'm not the kind of guy who's lying at a gate with sores. I don't identify in one sense with Lazarus. And I don't want to identify necessarily with the rich man who's got it all together, and he's healthy, and he's strong, and he's got money in the bank. I don't want to identify with him because he is so far from understanding the message of the gospel. But if I'm honest, I have to look hard at that guy and what Jesus is saying about that guy. The time came when the beggar died, and the listeners to Jesus' story were saying, and he went straight to hell. Obviously, God wasn't there for him, never was. God was always saying, the rich man, you've got it made. You're the one that's the most spiritual. You're the one that's God's blessings. And this guy who's got sores on the side of the road, he's obviously not listening to you at all. He's obviously going to hell. That's probably the way most people would have pictured the story. And Jesus says, we're going to flip the tables on you. The guy you most think is going to heaven, the guy who's had most together, well, gosh, he's going the other place. The time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abraham's side, and the rich man also died and was buried in Hades, where he was in torment. And he looked up and saw Abraham far away and Lazarus by his side. So he called him, Father Abraham, have pity on me and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony in this fire. But Abraham replied, Son, thank you, Adam. That's right. That's right. But Abraham replied, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things, and now he's comforted here and you're in agony. And beside all this, between you and us, a great chasm is set in place, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over from there to us. And I'm thinking, gosh, I sure enjoy a lot of those good things of life right now. This is, as I'm looking at this, I'm saying, who Who is God? What is Jesus saying to me? What is God saying to me? Because it would be so easy to misunderstand, misread. And then it goes on to say, he answered, this is Jesus' answer, "Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my family, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them so that they will not also come to this place of torment." And Abraham replied, "They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them." It's kind of interesting, isn't it? We almost come full circle. We're saying, can we listen to the prophet Moses? Can we listen to what he has to say? And what is the prophet Moses saying? Well, he's saying God is passionate. God is passionate about what? Well, God is passionate for sure about loving him more than anything else. You know, the context of this story about the rich man and Lazarus, Jesus was dealing with the Pharisees. He was talking to these religious leaders. And he said this, "No one can serve 2 masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You got to be passionate for one or the other." The Pharisees, who loved money, heard all this and were sneering at Jesus. The Pharisees were the religious leaders, and they were captured by money. And Jesus is saying, guess what? They're missing out, and this is why I'm telling you this story about where the focus needs to be. And this is the challenge to me as well, because you know money means a lot to me too. I want security, and money means security. I want things right, and somehow money helps making those things right. And what is it that I'm most passionate about? If it's between God or is it money? And sometimes money is my God. Maybe not millions and millions, but just enough. And usually it's just a little bit more than I have. You know, it's kind of the way it goes. Moses said this, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength." That's again Deuteronomy chapter 6. Verses 4 and 5. A good Jew would say that every single day, every gathering that began with this, called the Shema, which means to listen. This is what you're to listen to. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and all your strength. And Jesus, when asked, well, what's the greatest commandment? Well, he said the same thing. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees and Pharisees, got together, and one of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" And Jesus said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind. This is the first and greatest commandment." And the second, he also pulled from the book of Leviticus, another message from Moses, another command from Moses. The second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself, and all the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. And this is what you really want you to get passionate about. I want you to become passionate about loving God and loving the people around you. I want you passionate about this. I don't want a day to go by when you're not passionate about loving God and loving people. I want you filled with this. I want you focused in this area. I want you consumed by this. I want you to be a big-time lover. I want you to be really expressing yourself with all your worth in the area of reaching out to those people who are in desperate need, and somehow they haven't gotten this message. They haven't gotten a clue that this is the gospel, that loving God and loving people can really transform your life. And your life can be changed. Your life can be brought into a new realm of living. I think Jesus, the last thing he said before he left this earth was talking to his disciples, and he said this, "All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. I've got all authority. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations." I want people who are students. I want them to be disciplined in an understanding of my life and lifestyle. I want you to baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which is baptize them in the name of the God who who is in community with one another, the God who loves, and that community of God, Father, Son, and Spirit is the essence of love itself. I want you to be baptized. I want you to enter into His love. When you baptize in the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, what He's just saying is, I want love to go inside you. I want the love of the universe to transform you. It's not just this theological concept of God up there. It's the idea that God is love. And I want that love to just permeate your soul. I want you to become impassioned by this. I want you to go into that water, and I want you to come on out, and I want you to be a lover. I want you to be a transformed person. And then he says this, I want you to teach them to obey everything I've commanded you. And what is it that he's to teach them? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, spirit, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then he said, if you do this, guess what? Surely I will be with you always. You enter into this kind of relationship with God and with people, I'm going to be with you. You know what will transform HarborPointe into a place where God is always present? You make sure that you love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and spirit, and you love those people around you. And all of a sudden, people say, gosh, I sense the Spirit of God here. Same thing will happen in your home. Same thing will happen in your business. Same thing happens wherever people love God and love the people around them. And somehow we get misguided. We get passionate about stupid sidetracked issues. And we get these minor issues become major things. And we lose the focus that Jesus came to say, maybe I need to remind you about. And I know that Ann and I, we met each other over email. It was this kind of fun fantasy, you know? You could kind of, we did 6 weeks of emailing, and we could, you know, sort of pretend that we had a relationship, you know? And Ann thought I was perfect. I mean, because all my answers were perfect, you know, and I looked perfect. She thought I was blonde because my hair, and I didn't wear glasses, and you know, I looked different. I mean, she didn't recognize me when we actually met in person. But we got to know each other enough so that Ann said this. She said, when we meet in person, if there is any, and she used the word chemistry, I know that we're supposed to get married. Let me ask you something. Do you have chemistry with Jesus? Is there something that just pulls you to another level? Are you willing to get married to Him? Are you willing to let go of the smaller things and just say, you know, there's nothing more important? Ann and I are going to be celebrating with our family my middle son's birthday today. Actually, it's next week, but this is first of the month we get together and we have our family celebration of all the special events that we have for that month. But so we'll be celebrating his birthday, but we also celebrate my son's annual year of sobriety. It was 12 years ago, January, where he was in a hospital bed with an overdose. And he said, Dad, if I come to live with you, I'll be able to let go of the drugs. And asked him if he had prayed. And he said, not in a long time. And gave him a Bible, and he saw him a couple days later in the hospital, and he said, Dad, I prayed last night. Now, from that day, for the next 12 years, he hasn't touched a drug or a drop of alcohol. There's been a miracle in his life because there was chemistry in his soul. It was chemistry. Something happened. And he is passionate. His wife, when he met Charity, first thing she said to us when they started dating, and she came up to us and said, you know, I've never met a more on fire for God person than Jared. I was thinking, gosh, I think that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to be for all of us. On fire for God. On fire for the love of God. On fire for this chemistry that can happen. I think that's the way it's supposed to be. I think this is the calling that Jesus has in each of our life. Chemistry. On fire. Passion. His love. Lord God, I thank you for this time that we can spend together here with brothers and sisters on a, as Brandon says, this beautiful 60-degree, almost moving toward it day. But but every day, Lord, that we have life, it's the day that you have blessed, and it's the day we're to rejoice in. It's the day we're to give thanks for. It's life is itself. What a gift! What a miracle! How marvelous! And we just want, and I want to start with me, Lord. Into your hands. I want to commit my spirit. I want you to take control. I want you to fill me with your Spirit. I want you to use me as you've designed me to be. I want you to do that work in me. Lord, I want to love you more today than I ever have before. I want to be more in love with you and the people around me than ever. I want to be sensitive to your Spirit speaking to me. I want to reach out to those people in desperate need. I want my brothers and sisters in ministry to realize that we are privileged, we are fortunate, we are so lucky, but not to take it for granted, not to be arrogant or haughty because of what we've been given. Just want to say thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name. Amen.